Hi everyone, it's Tran and Mike Weber here. Welcome to our channel and video. This time we're going to be talking about the 2026 real estate market coming up. Mike, what do you see is going to be happening this coming spring?
It's always hard to make predictions a whole year in advance, for all of 2026. To be honest with you, Thuy, I think it's going to be a pretty tough year for real estate across the board, particularly here in California. In fact, I read an article this morning that said that pending home sales are at like record lows right now. They're even below the great financial crisis, the housing crash in 2008, 2009. And they really dropped off in December. And of course, they do typically drop down in December, but they dropped well below where they otherwise typically would be. So that's definitely not a good sign for the housing market. On top of that, we did see, at least in the last few weeks, relatively lower rates. Now, of course, depending on how the rate picture plays out this year, that'll probably have a pretty large effect on the market. But I just see a lot of weakness in the job market, a lot of headwinds, and also just a lot of weakness right now in real estate. So I think 2026 might be a pretty tough year. What do you think?
Well, I think, on a national level, I don't see it being that rosy, right? Because like you said, right, we are having a very unpredictable market, not just,
Hmm.
in the real estate, but economic wise and, a lot of things that are going on in our country that can
Hmm.
make it feel very uncertain for seller and buyer. And
Yeah.
I mean, of course, if we're looking at December number, because right now we're in January and December number, like you said, typically it is a much slower season. And even
Hmm.
in January, it is, I feel like buyers and sellers are just still warming up. Everybody's kind of just getting ready for the spring market. And even right now,
Yeah.
I mean, I have a few really solid buyer who are like earnestly looking, and
Hmm.
there's really not much out there, unfortunately, because the inventory is very low to choose from. But what
Yeah.
I have noticed though, right, and this is not from closed transaction, but transactions that are currently on the market or currently pending, I've noticed that this past week, things have been moving very quickly for my market.
Hmm.
So like
Yeah.
even a couple of the zip code that we were looking at, before we have at least plenty of listing that were either sitting around for a little bit. Now they're all gone. And the last week I
Mhm.
was just looking at one of the zip code and there was only four new listing coming up. And I was like, wait a minute. I just saw like at least a dozen of them. And so it is definitely turning fairly quickly right now. And so
Mhm.
I think in the short term, and I would say probably in this spring market, so far what I'm seeing, I see the trajectory being pretty good, especially
Mhm.
like you said, right? Rate right now is, around the 6%. And for some people, some buyer, if they are A paper, they can get it right under 6% as well. And so I do
Mhm.
see that being an incentive for a lot of buyers out there. And so maybe in the next few months, I said quarter one would probably be a pretty good market
Mhm.
generally for buyer and seller. And then we shall see how the rest of the year will go.
Yeah. Well, it's kind of funny that you say that because we kind of talked about this idea of when is a good time to sell on a previous video and whether or not the holidays are a good season. And the funny thing is inventory dropped off pretty substantially in most of California over December and, obviously early January. And so it dropped off so much so that the little bit of inventory was on the market, like you said, all of a sudden is, becomes pretty attractive. And a lot of that stuff got bought up or is in escrow now. So it's kind of funny how that lower inventory level really spurred the market, at least in as much as there were homes available on the market for those serious and motivated buyers like the ones you're working with currently, right?
Uh, Yeah, and typically, I see right around like December, November, January, it is very much the serious buyer and the serious seller. Like they're the one that we need to move. We need to uh, be in a new home, right? Nothing's really going to stop them because there are motivations and then that in place versus, if you're kind of like, oh, we have time or we're not in a rush, then they can take their time, get things ready, all that.
Yeah, 100%. I suspect that, last year we actually had pretty elevated inventory levels in most areas compared to what is typical here in California in our markets. I think we're going to see something similar again this year. I think, like, in fact, I have a client looking in my local area, and there was like, I don't know, one or two homes in the two zip codes that we were looking in early January, January 1st. And I just looked this week, and there's like five, six new listings all of a sudden. So I think we're going to start to see a lot more inventory kind of pick back up on the market, probably pretty quickly over the next month or two. Like I have another listing coming out this week. So I think a lot of sellers that really do want to move, I think the writing is going to be kind of on the wall. They're going to probably start listing early this year. And I have a feeling we'll see a lot more inventory coming online here pretty quickly.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with you on that. Yeah, because even in my neighborhood, I know some of my neighbor are like getting ready to put their home on the market too. And so for sure, I think by early March, we're gonna be seeing a lot of activity for sure, because the spring market is coming up. So I think if any buyers are looking to buy or getting ready, it's really important that you get your pre-approval in place, put your team together, right? Whether it's a loan officer or your realtor, so that you can be ready, no surprise, to learn more about the market, learn more about the buying process. And I say the same for seller too, because get your realtor involved, because as you are getting ready to put your home on the market, having that expertise to guide you up, what kind of repair is is important, what repair is actually worthwhile to do, what will bring you the most ROI, instead of just thinking and, well, I should do this, I should do that, because there's lots of things you can do and then waste your money on it that's not going to return anything at all. And then there are some that are pretty low value, but bring in a lot more return for the money.
Yeah. And another thing to consider is that I think there's going to be a lot of pressure this year to get interest rates down and get mortgage rates down. And I think that if the government is successful at achieving that, there is a pretty decent probability, pretty decent possibility that we're going to see the market heat up again quite aggressively. Doing what Thuy says, getting your ducks in a row now, getting pre-approved, making sure you know what you can afford, and kind of being ready might give you an edge over other buyers in the market. You might be able to get in earlier, get a better deal than a lot of other people may end up paying later in the year if rates start falling precipitously. So also importantly, we want to hear from you guys. Let us know what you think the market's going to look like here in California in 2026 down in the comments below. Also, if we can help you with real estate, buying, selling, anything you need, you can reach out to Thuy directly. She's in San Jose, and I'm down here in Los Angeles, and we're here to help. And we appreciate the opportunity.
Yeah, and I just want to add, and if you are not in our area, we still would love to help too, because we do have a network of amazing realtor that will be happy to introduce them to you. So that way, you are getting an expert in the area.
Absolutely. Well, guys, we appreciate you watching, and we'll see you next time.
Bye.